Here we are at the Eastie Farm greenhouse at 6 Chelsea Terrace in East Boston. Welcome to Eastie Farm. My name is Kannan. I'm the director of Eastie Farm, and we are at our greenhouse, sort of still under construction, but it's almost in place, and I'm loving the pitter-patter of the rain on the roof of the greenhouse. It's funny how it feels open, even with the structure here. You can see all around, and it just has this open feeling, which we always wanted. We like green open spaces. Eastie Farm, we are a community organization in East Boston. We grow food, we build community, and we work on stabilizing our climate. One of the initial motivations for this is our education program. Eastie Farm has an education program called Climate Nature that we do with a couple of other organizations in the community. Nature stands for Nature as Teacher for Urban Resiliency Education. In that program, the kids have so much fun. It's sort of semi-structured. The kids get to try things, experiment with things, and engage with things, walk around the neighborhoods, check out storm drains, check out the tide, and plant things and pull a carrot out of the soil for the first time in their life and wonder why their carrot is dirty and why it's attached to a plant. So they learn all that. But we get to do that only in spring, summer, and fall. In the summertime, most of the kids are off. So we really only get spring and fall with the kids. But they love it, we love it, and we were wondering how we can extend it into the winter. And that was the primary motivation behind wanting to have a greenhouse. This space was previously owned by the city. The access is a little difficult, and it's kind of situated in a place next to the highway. You can see there's 1A, a ramp coming out of the Sumner-Callahan tunnels going up right there in the background. So the location and the access has somehow resulted in this space being around for a while, and the city approached us, and we have now taken over the space. Eastie Farm now owns this space, and we therefore were allowed to build in it. And we thought we will build a greenhouse so that we could have kids over in the winter. The next site over will be developed as a middle school. We need more middle schools in the community. So we thought this is the ideal location to have kids right there, have this access so they can come and go and they can learn, and this can become part of their curriculum. So that was the motivation behind it. Besides, as we all know, we're in a food insecure community. The more food we can grow, the better. And our big picture idea of always thinking about how, if people in the city are better connected to nature, it's always helpful for us to relate to why good food costs a lot and why we should still buy it from local farmers. So this sort of a structure helps us bring more state-grown food here and distribute it to people here so they can learn who is growing food, what does it take, and contribute to local economy, all of that. So we just thought our values kind of have a place where they can take shape, and that's why we decided to embark on this. There was some funding available from the state for food security, that also helped, and then the city itself pitched in as well, and some local foundations like East Boston Foundation. So this greenhouse, once we decided to have a greenhouse, we started to think about what are we going to do in the winter? It's going to get so cold. Even with a greenhouse, it will be cold, and your homes hopefully are well insulated. With a greenhouse, it's not possible to achieve that level of insulation. So it will get cold, the soil might freeze. So what do? Most greenhouses, they actually heat them. And many people use propane to heat their greenhouses. That is a fossil fuel. And we're trying to live our values of no fossil fuel so we don't hurt our destabilizing climate even more. So we decided that we wanted to find a renewable source of energy to heat the greenhouse. And guess what it is? I'm standing right on top of it. Our Earth, once you go beyond a certain depth, can give you this constant source of energy, can be this constant source of energy. So we're going down, we have 3 wells here down to 450 feet, 455, they want to do a little extra, and to be sure. And we get somewhere around 52 to 58 degrees temperature when you reach at that level throughout the year. And so that we're circulating a liquid that goes down there, picks up that heat, comes up here, and then we'll do a heat exchange so we can warm up the air here. So that is geothermal energy. The circulation will require electricity, but the electricity will come from Boston's CCE, Community Choice Energy, which has a 100% green option. So we've already bought into that option, and that's what we'll use to operate the geothermal. So geothermal is clean and renewable. This electricity is also coming to us as a 100% green source. So the operations of the greenhouse will involve no carbon emissions because of this. So what we'd like to plant here, to make such decisions, we just go to the community. And that's what we've been doing all these years anyway. Even for our outside planting, we just go to the community. What would you like to see planted? And it's the same thing that we buy extra seedlings off. If we have saved seedlings, we plant them. And so we're doing the same thing with this, just going to the community. What would you like to see in terms of the usage of the inside of the space? People have requested that this be a tree nursery, that this be a seedling nursery, that this be an event space where people can gather and just talk about whatever, but just use this as this nice sheltered space. It's raining right now and we're nice and dry. And it feels cool, right? And with more, think about it with more greenery as we begin to set this up. So event space, and it's been also, of course, an education space. That was always our goal, because there will be a school right there, and we already work with other schools. So what will we grow? I'm guessing people are going to ask for the same things that they've always asked for, all kinds of peppers, right? We have our demographics here involves more than 50% Hispanic population, and there is a ton of interest in all kinds of peppers. So we grow a lot of peppers, tomatoes, the usual annuals. There's a lot of interest in that. And there's also an increasing request for herbs. Ever since COVID, interestingly enough, people have wanted to build up their immunity, and there's also some belief, it gives you some resistance. And so there's all kinds of requests for herbs so that we can make herbal tea. And there are people in the community, Tree Eastie and Speak for the Trees, which is this larger organization. They've also requested that they need space as a little nursery for trees. Before they get planted around in the community, this could be a place where they spend their childhood, right? So that was another request, and we're seriously looking into that as well, because we know that our community needs more tree canopy. And so that'll be all kinds of trees. But we, as a food-based organization, are rooting for fruit trees, right? So these two trees outside here are mulberry trees, and they're right outside the greenhouse. We chose not to take them down. If we had, we could have situated the greenhouse in the middle of this space. Instead, we chose to keep the trees and move the greenhouse close to our neighbors' borders, boundaries, and they're all okay with that, so that the trees can continue to live. That's how much we value fruit-bearing trees and trees in general. So our focus will be that, but whatever the community wants is what will grow. So it'll be all kinds of fun things to just come in here and harvest and have a salad for your event. So this structure is, the greenhouse itself is from a company called Gacon in the Netherlands. We researched a lot of greenhouses. We're big on buying things local. We know that the American manufacturing industry has kind of left us. And one of the reasons we say our carbon emissions are down is because we've outsourced our manufacturing to other countries, and their carbon emissions have gone up because they're manufacturing things for our consumption. But after having looked at several American options and research with the help of our architect, Sira, we then found this to be the most durable option with the kind of additional features that we wanted. For example, the rain is falling right now on the roof. Where do you think that goes? All the rain that falls on this roof, this entire catchment area, is directed towards that end through these beams, which actually serve a second purpose as gutters. And in that space, they're collected, and we're going to have a rain barrel there. And once we store the amount of rainwater that we want, then any excess will be directed to the ground. And the structure you're looking at is very temporary. Our farm manager, Alex Grayora, who's also the project manager for this greenhouse, has put that up before the rain barrel gets here. We're getting a 500-gallon rain barrel. And one of the advantages of having water inside the greenhouse is that it will increase the thermal capacity of the greenhouse, which means we don't have to spend more energy heating up the greenhouse. And we don't think that we should be sending storm water to the ocean. So we try not to empty into the storm drain. There's enough increase in the ocean level already without our help. The sea level's rising. We don't need to add to that. And we may also end up changing the salinity and whatnot. We don't want to do that. On the other hand, we want to bank in the groundwater. So we keep sending it to the ground. That's what we are doing. So there's more work we'll be doing in the landscaping outside to create more room for stormwater to get to the ground. So there were several reasons why we went to this company Gakon in the Netherlands for the greenhouse. We would have liked to purchase locally. But we were thinking about the kind of features we need for long-term climate friendliness of the feature. Not only is the structure more durable and the material more durable in terms of the light it allows to come in, that's how the greenhouse works, right? There has to be light coming in. And it's also got these features, the stormwater management feature, which is one, these gutters leading to those pipes there. Two, the central part of the roof here, it can be opened. It can be opened like that, so that by hand cranking if you need to, by electricity when you have power, you can open it. And when you do that in the summertime, when there's way too much heat here, you want to send all that heat out so this remains comfortable. So that's another feature. And what seems like something can open and close here is also an additional energy efficiency feature. When we're heating up the space in the winter with the geothermal heat, and these two cones here are the outlet for the geothermal, and we're going to attach a heat exchange system to that. That part of the work is still to be done, and we're still raising funds for that. But once that's done, this will be heated up, and we want to maintain the heat and keep it from getting lost. So this fabric will then cover the space in the summer. Right? Or also if it's, in the winter. And in the summer, if there's too much sunlight bearing right down on us, because the sun is likely going to be right up again over us, right? To cut off that sunlight, because all the light will turn into heat and you want to reduce the heat. There again, it's useful. So during the extreme weather seasons, this fabric is going to help as insulation and as an energy efficiency mechanism. That's what that's for. All of those things have been thought through by this company, and they've done a really good job of building greenhouses that are serving their main purpose of growing whatever we want to grow, but also at the same time are climate friendly and durable in the long term. So that's why we opted for this company. The semi-transparent kind of look is to give some privacy for neighbors, so it's not like really transparent. So we've discussed this with neighbors as well, and they've kind of opted for this, and so we went with that. But above though, it's all clear, and if we can turn the city lights off somehow, you come here in the nighttime, you can see stars. It's glass. What's behind me, what looks like a piece of modern art by our artist Alex Grayora, is actually our project manager for this project, and he's also our farm manager. This young man who joined us as AmeriCorps and became a part-time and now is doing a full-time job for us, an amazing job. So he did this because we're still waiting to purchase and set up rain barrels, 500 gallons of water that can be right here and available to us should we need that water to use for the plants. So that will go above here, and this whole structure will change of how the water is directed. This is very temporary, what you're looking at right now. And once the rain barrel's here, there'll be proper mechanism for routing the water to the rain barrel. Any excess water will go to the ground, and there's drainage out to the landscape space outside. And there we'll be building rain gardens, which means trees and plants that can handle what's called wet feet, when water is stagnating for a little bit while it's trying to find its way down, and the trees are okay with that stagnation of water. So rain gardens, and also some wells, that dry well as you called it, Mary, so that water can go down to a level where it can then find its way down. There's a lot of clay underneath here we found naturally, so that will hold the water up, and we're going to have to go through that layer to make sure that the water doesn't stagnate. So it's all about sending the storm water, using the storm water, collecting the storm water, making sure it's not resulting in flooding for anybody, including our neighbors, and then sending it to the ground. The piece outside the greenhouse is also sheltered. It's sort of semi-sheltered, but it is exposed to the elements. Inside you're not exposed, outside you are, but you have this nice outside feeling when you're there. It can serve as overflow space when we have events here, but people have also explicitly requested that there be some benches in an outside open area outside the greenhouse, so that it's easy for people to walk and sit and rest, and maybe like charge their phone or have a chat with somebody, and maybe it can be a buddy bench. You know, if you want to chat with somebody else, you sit there and then somebody joins you. So there have been those requests, and we want to honor those requests. So we created that space, so it's kind of semi-sheltered. If you know, depending on how people want, they can, if they want the snow to fall on them, they can go on to the other side. Otherwise, they can be on this side. And it's also a space where delivery trucks can come in and or pick up of our CSA boxes and things like that. We'll have a pathway right there from the entrance to the space all the way to here, and then they can load, unload, and then back up. So that's another reason for that outside space. I mean, we would like for people to learn that the more you work in harmony with nature, the more you can live better, then the more you will get from nature. So that's what all our ancestors have done, right? They've observed how nature works and then worked with that. Even the very idea of agriculture is by looking at how the sun moves and when the rain falls, and then designing the agricultural period, what to seed, when to harvest. All of that was based on that. So we think that those who have good exposure to sunlight, definitely we would like for them to have mini greenhouses. We have little greenhouses in a couple of our spaces, like 10 by 10 type, and people can have those. More importantly, we hope that development and governments are inspired by this to do what they do in a community sensitive and climate friendly way. For example, we've already implemented geothermal, right? But there are many people who think of geothermal as a technology of tomorrow or day after tomorrow, right? It's here. We can already use it. The earth has always been here, and it's always certain warm or hot, depending on how deep you reach. And so that's a clean, renewable source of energy. And so we're hoping that those who have the ability and power to develop our cities will be inspired by this to do more climate-friendly development. So whenever you're trying to do something new, an alternative and novel, of course it's the craziest thing that people ever heard. It's like, it's stupid also. And we said we want to grow food using that lot at 294 Sumner. And some people right away said that could be housing for 12, 13, 15 families, right? And housing, that's important, that's critical, and we need to provide that. Why would you take that space away? So a lot of people never got on board with this idea of having open green space. It's also sort of because in our education we don't learn how open green spaces make us feel good, are healthy for us. There's a woman that used to live right next door, and very shy, mother of like 3 or 4, but very shy person. And we never saw her, except when there was nobody in that space, she would just go hang out there on her own. That was her breathing space. And all of these spaces turned out into breathing spaces like Belal Marsh did during COVID, right? So there's those advantages that I think people are not super aware of. So housing is something we understand. In fact, the space was called a missing tooth. A missing tooth is a bad thing. In your mouth, if you're missing a tooth, that's a bad thing. The other teeth are going to lean over, have other root issues and all of that stuff. But that's not true for buildings. They're not going to lean over because there isn't a building in between. In fact, that's why we created a logo for Eastie Farm with a carrot. And the carrot greens occupying that space. So we can have other things. It doesn't have to be another building. So that was one thing that a lot of people never got on board and always said that there should be a building there. And when we said, we're not going to be a traditional community garden that divides up space and you get this little real estate for yourself for however long you want, and you do whatever you want in that space, or you don't do whatever you don't want to do. But it becomes this private space, right? We wonder about the truthfulness of community building in these so-called community gardens, because people don't really have to work with each other. Everybody gets a key, you just own your own little piece of real estate. But in our space, we said it's going to be open to the community and people will work together to grow what they want to grow. And that gives everyone a chance to connect with each other. You know, in the city, people don't really connect with each other. There's a little bit of discomfort even when your neighbor is checking their mailbox. You're like, oh, hi. So, but in this space, you're like, oh, you live next door. Great. Let's figure out how to plant this thing or transplant this thing. And so it has that bond. That was our thinking. But people didn't think that this kind of collective approach as opposed to an individual approach is going to work. We also talked about keeping it open so people can access it all the time. That's another thing that didn't sit well with people at all. They said everything is going to be stolen like on day one. You know, we can't figure out why you want to do this. And we said, let us do it anyway. It'll be an experiment. And I'm happy to tell you, nothing got stolen, ever. We put out a flower pot once, and somebody may have thought it's a donation. They took it out from outside. It was from outside. And I can't think of anything else that was taken away. People have been happy to have this space. All kinds of people go to this space. The people who have moved into the new buildings, they're looking for some community activity in some ways to embed themselves in the community. They show up. And these are young people who have some disposable income, and they contribute to the garden by purchasing our market rate CSAs, which then helps us raise funds to do our affordable CSAs, community supported agriculture program subscriptions, and our free CSA programs. So, and people who are from agrarian backgrounds, like most of the immigrants are. They have no access to land, but they want to grow something. There's this woman, Paulina, she brings her grandchildren because she wants them to see how joyful it is to plant something, to grow something. And that's her time with her grandchildren. But she has no access to land otherwise. You know, so we get all kinds of people showing up there, meeting each other, supporting each other, learning about each other. You know how much we don't know about our neighbors in the city? But when you hang out in a space, you learn something about the other person. Thank you for watching. This is a project that is ongoing. We have the structure in place. It already warms up quite a bit, and just because of the sunlight that comes in here and because of greenhouse effect. But we are yet to complete the geothermal setup. The below ground part of the work is done. The above ground is yet to be done. And as you can see, the whole setup of the interior is yet to be done as well, and landscaping outside this space at 6 Chelsea Terrace in East Boston. But tune in again to see how the space is going to look next time. You are in for some pleasant surprises.